Welcome into the official. I just want to thank everybody. If you're watching this right now, if you're listening on a podcast, last week, our All-Star recap did the best I think any of our shows have ever done. We're pushing about 500 views here, less than a week out from that release. And just thank each and every one of you for listening, watching. Keep it up. We are really trying to hit 3,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. So like and subscribe to this content. It seems like, we are building momentum here, and really appreciate everybody who's shown us appreciation for putting out this recruiting show each and every week during the season. And this week, we've got yet another great show for you. We're going to go over the 3-star running backs we think are worth adding in your college fantasy football leagues. And if nothing else, keeping an eye on for future success. And these are guys who we really like. We'll go over why, and 3-star running backs coming right up on the official. All right. Good evening, gentlemen. Who's ready to dive into some 3-star running backs? I feel like this is the group we usually do the best with in all of these deep dive shows.
Yeah, you know it.
So, I mean, just turning back the clock a little bit. I mean, personally, some of my biggest hits before we were even doing the official, Devin Neal was a guy I really liked as a 3-star coming out of Kansas, and he's really popped off. I think 2 years ago at this point, we hit Damien Martinez. We hit Quinshon Judkins. Any 3-stars from last year that are memorable that did something big this year?
Justin Marshall was a guy I kind of liked that kind of popped off near the end of the year for Colorado State.
Yeah. Justin Marshall looked really good. He's definitely on I'm going to do a little video about him probably as a guy to watch as a sophomore between that freshman and the year 2 breakout there. So, I feel like we've hit on some really big ones. I mean, Quinshon Judkins was obviously a massive hit. 3-star guy who quickly became one of the best running backs in all of college fantasy football. And so hopefully we'll hit a few more tonight. And, before we get started, let me just remind everybody to go check out campustocanton.com. That is the website that really fuels our ability to make this show. We put all of this information on that website. There's all sorts of tools. There's athletic comparison tools that you can go in and look at these recruits and say, who do they look like, who already have success in the NFL, plus countless other things that you can do to make yourself a better fantasy football player, to help yourself project what is going to happen down the line, which is the name of the game when you're playing fantasy football. We have memberships that start as little as $2.99 per month and go up from there, depending on what kind of content, what kind of tools, and what kind of level of access you would like. Additionally, homefieldapparel.com is our partner. Fantastic college apparel, shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, everything you can imagine. You can get yourself some vintage St. Peter's merchandise, Colorado School of Mines, or go with the traditional Georgia, Alabama, Michigan merchandise over there. And if it's your first time visiting homefieldapparel.com, type in Campus 2 Canton in your promo code, spelled with the number 2, and get yourself 15% off your first purchase. All right, with that business out of the way, we're going into the 3-star running backs. Now, some of these guys we've talked about all year. Matt, who comes to mind as guys we're going to briefly just mention names, but not go deep because we like to give new names to all of our listeners, but guys that we're pretty much saying are ranked and probably truly draftable in your freshman drafts that we won't go too deep in here, because if you've been paying attention all year, you should know about them.
Yeah, so Johan Cardenas, we've talked about it a good amount already. Cornell Hatcher, recent Oregon State commit, we talked about a good bit. Harry Stewart going to Kansas. Was there another guy I'm leaving off?
Yeah, I mean, the guy from one of our very first episodes, Winovich, Gabriel Winovich.
Yep. Gabriel Winovich.
Heading to Rutgers, who I believe won their bowl game and kind of looks like a program could be creeping up in prestige there. Another guy.
A lot too.
What?
They run the ball a lot too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a great program for running backs. And then Jason Patterson, a guy we've talked about a little bit, one of the faster running backs in the class, headed to Kentucky, so another 3-star. So those guys I would probably consider, late round draft picks, depending on how deep your league is. Cardenas, I think, is like a top 10 running back for most of us already. So those guys, we won't go too in depth, but we have probably 15-ish new names for everybody that we really like. 3-star guys headed to P5 and G5, P4 and G5 programs. All right. Without further ado, let's go in. David, kick us off here with one of your guys. Let's see. Alexander. I have to remember his first name. Jaylen Alexander. And I think he's headed to like Ball State or MAC school. Is that right?
Yeah, gotta get a piece of the action. He is. You're gonna run the clip, or
yeah, I'm running. I was just.
There we go. He's like 5'10", 195. I like his physique. That's something I've been paying more attention to. I feel like like low body fat, real strong. Has some good lifts. Pretty good agility. I think you're gonna see right here. He's got pretty good agility. His stats aren't gonna like pop out at you too much, but I think his offense, like just like going through his highlights and stuff, his offensive line wasn't all that good, and a lot of his stuff was between the tackles. He didn't bounce a ton of runs. He hit 21.3 miles per hour on one of these runs on the catapult vest, which is good. So he has pretty good speed. 3-sport guy, basketball player. And does a little track as well. So kind of like his frame, kind of like his build, and Ball State, maybe not the most exciting, but the competition level in the action is pretty weak. So maybe he could do something.
Yeah, and we had 2 pretty awesome years of Carson Steele, I believe, at Ball State before he went to UCLA. So certainly anything in the MAC is fair game. I never am going to poo-poo, taking a dab in the MAC. So, all right, Matt, going to you. Did you find the next great Boise State running back? We have been just, showered with George Holani for a few years. Ashton Jeanty is unbelievable. By the way, another 3-star we identified a few years ago, but had almost 2,000 total yards this past season. And now next up for the Broncos is this guy. So go ahead and take it away with Dylan Riley.
Yeah, he's a bit on the smaller side, 5'10", 185, but he does have the speed on top of it. I was able to get him at 21.8 miles per hour. He has pretty good track times to back that up as well. But at the moment, I'm considering him as more of a CFF pick just because of the size. He's got to add, at least 15, 20 pounds to even be in that NFL range. But that being said, I think he can be a really productive college player. As Alfred just said, Boise State has been doing pretty good with running backs as of late. Last year, or the season that just ended, Boise State was 22nd in rush attempts per game, which is on the higher end. It's something I'm definitely looking for. You'll definitely hear me referencing that stat a few more times tonight. And he 2,059 yards rushing, 29 touchdowns, 10.7 yards per carry as a senior. So checking a lot of boxes for me there in terms of a guy that I think could come in and produce pretty good at the college level.
Yeah, those are some great numbers. And I mean, Boise State, whether it's the program, putting these guys in position to see, or are they just really good at mining 3-star guys? Either way, you like betting on that scouting department and the running backs, and just generally a great, G5 program. But yeah, I like Riley quite a bit. I think he could be very good. Jeanty, I can't imagine, has more than 1 year left before he will either be transferring and upgrading to Power 4, or maybe just going to the NFL, because he looks fantastic. And he's up to 210 pounds now, because I feel like he was down in the 190 range as a recruit, and he's huge now. So maybe Riley can follow. All right, so my dude here to start it off is Joseph Dodds, 6 feet, 195, headed to Baylor. And just a guy I've liked a lot throughout the process. He won't blow you away with, top end speed. I think he hits almost 21 miles per hour, 20.9. His acceleration is really good, though. I really like once he hits a seam, he kind of can break some angles to the outside. Hard to, I don't have his SOS for the strength of schedule that well or memorized or anything, but, once he does get to the second level, he does seem to make safeties kind of struggle. They rarely can get around. He can get up north south on the side of the field and then break off some huge runs. He also shows a lot of power. He really has that lower the shoulder boom that some of these guys don't always show in high school. So Baylor, another team that traditionally does like to run the ball in the recent years, and kind of like the situation he's going in, and just kind of like the overall package Joseph Dodd's going to bring to the table. So there you go. Not the fastest guy that we'll talk about by any stretch. I mean, usually I do like guys who get at least 20.9, pretty close, but just kind of an overall good running back from what I can see. All right, David, and this next guy is pretty new to me, to be honest with you. Nikai Amry. So take it away. I don't even know how to introduce him. He's all yours.
Yeah, we're gonna double dip in the MAC. We got a guy going to Bowling Green here. Kind of another mid-sized guy, like 5'11", 195. Another guy where I like his physique. Low body fat, good muscle on him. I think he'll put on like 10, 15 pounds. Probably burstier than I would say like fast, although he does have a 4.49 laser, but like our max mile per hour on him is 20.2. But I think he's got agility. 3-sport guy, 4.0 student. He camps at a lot of like Power 5 schools like Notre Dame, Northwestern, Minnesota. I think Minnesota actually offered him, but I don't think it was committable. I think he was kind of like a plan B or C type guy. But you didn't see it on there, but he can catch passes too. And he actually looked pretty smooth running routes and some of the camp stuff I watched on YouTube. So I think he could I think he could be a 3-down guy potentially. He'll probably need a year to get his weight up a bit and stuff like that. But I like his potential.
Yeah, I mean, I think with running back, all these guys are honestly like fair game. These are the guys you want to know the names as soon as and move on them as quick as possible, because of injuries. You could have these guys, get 30 carries in a random Tuesday night action game, and want to be starting them, because with injuries and stuff, sometimes they're the last man standing, and these games are just wide open. So all these names, could be very relevant. Look at Ricky Hunt, a MAC third string running back, and in the bowl game had 5 touchdowns because he was basically the only guy left healthy. I mean, that's the kind of stuff especially these G5 teams can just kind of fall into carries. All right, Matt, next guy for you is going to be a very, very fast prospect headed to the SEC. So you're definitely going to want to keep this name on your radar. Tell us about Gayton here, Xavier Gantt.
Yeah, he's committed to Mississippi State, 6 foot, 190. I'm not too worried about the weight. I believe his high school coach even came out and said that he thinks that he's going to be able to pack on a bunch more weight once he gets into school. I think he's got a pretty good frame. So he should be a 200-plus guy relatively soon. He's one of the more athletic RBs in this class. He's currently sitting at 73rd percentile in our athleticism score. Last season, rushed for 2,055 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9.4 per carry. Probably has the most Devy upside of any of the guys I'm going to talk about tonight, just because of the landing spot and the athletic ceiling. But on top of that, going to Mississippi State, they just got Jeff Lebby in. Oklahoma was 20th in rushing attempts per game last season. Season before that, they're 8th. So, definitely a program they'll probably like to run the rock, and don't think they got a ton of young depth there. So I think he could, pop off at some point.
Yeah, that depth chart should be pretty wide open. I mean, I'm not even sure if I can name a transfer they got off the top of my head, and kind of think they just didn't do a lot this year. So should be plenty of room to prove himself. That's for sure. Okay, moving on to my next back, who, we're dealing with the 3 stars, so there's always a wart or two. I like this guy a lot. I like the tape. I like the size. I like the speed. He wasn't very efficient in high school. Usually that is a pretty big red flag. But let's talk about Jamal Wy here. 6 foot, 225, already listed on the Cal website. He's going to Cal. This is a great play. Hurdle also still stays on his feet, makes a few guys miss, and ends up taking this thing all the way to the house. So, a very creative player. There's other examples. I don't know if it'll be on this clip, but of him just kind of using a lot of different tools to, break tackles, get extra yardage, things like that. But, he wasn't super efficient. I mean, we're talking 5-6 yards a carry. That's not really what you want to see. You want to see closer to double digits, to be honest with you, in these for these high school prospects. But it's not the end all be all. And he does break over 21 miles per hour. He's 225 pounds. So that's a really nice, 1-2 punch speed and size there. And then Cal, as a depth chart, once Jaden Ott moves on, next year will be his 3rd year. He's been incredible for 2 years in a row. I would imagine he either goes to the NFL or transfers to like a high major Power 4 team. That rest of that backfield has not done anything. So, I think this guy could prove himself and find himself in a pretty thin depth chart in short order. So Jamal Wy is a guy I want to keep my eyes on. David, moving over to your 3rd guy, we've got Vargas, Carter Vargas. Another guy that you have just really gone all the way down the list and pulled this name out of. I'm not super familiar, but happy to learn about him tonight. So go for it.
Do some digging, man. He's a secondary guy here. Not overly athletic. So I think he just has really good feel here. Look at him. He's got some wiggle there. I think he's got really good vision, honestly. He can flip the field. He can find cutback lanes. Nice little stiff arm there. So he was committed to Nevada, but then they changed coaches. So he decommitted. And now he's like looking around. So I guess he's got till around February is the actual signing day to find a spot. But good pass catcher as well. 32 receptions, 500 yards receiving with another 7 touchdowns. Averages nearly 10 yards per run. Not a speed demon by any means, probably like 20.2. Apparently he's got a 4.50 laser. Could be a little juice, but regardless, I think he's more of like he's also 5'11", 204, so he's got good size and good feel, I think, and good vision. So I think that's kind of how plus he's got a 3-down skill set, so I like all that.
Yeah, and then I just noticed in December UAB offered him, so we like that as a landing spot potentially for running backs. So that could be nice if he ends up signing with UAB, or maybe someone else will come sniffing around. All right, Matt. Sincere Rainey is next on the list here. So take it away with Sincere, spelled with a C, C-I-N-C-E-R-E, no S.
Yeah, he's committed to San Diego State, 5'10", 200 pounds. He was actually up to like 220, 230 as a junior, and cut a bunch of weight. I think it paid off because he looked a lot better in his movement. Not a super high-end athlete, but I think good enough. I was able to get him at 21 miles per hour. If you're watching the video, 20.5 in this play, according to whatever tracker they use. 1,883 yards this season, 23 touchdowns, 9.5 average. That checks the production boxes for me. And I think San Diego State can be a pretty solid landing spot for him. They just got in Sean Lewis. Things didn't go great at Colorado last year, but at Kent State, he in 2022, 13th in rushing attempts per game, and 2021, 5th in rushing attempts per game. I can't recall the name of that running back they had. He didn't end up being anything of NFL, but he was a very, very highly productive running back for them. there at Kent State. And I think Rainey could potentially duplicate that.
Marquez Cooper, is that who you're thinking of?
Yep, that's it. Yep.
Yeah, he was a stud, and he went to Ball State, and I don't know what happened, but yeah. All right, great. That's another good one. I always like the G5 running backs. I somehow wound up with mostly G4, P4 guys, but I'm going to talk about. He goes by Fame Ijiboy, is I think how you would say the name, but Fame is pretty badass first name. And he's going to Minnesota. So part of this is a little bit of the system at Minnesota, who they just want to run the ball 40 times a game. I mean, they just one of the absolute most run heavy. I don't know, Matt, you were saying, all these rush attempts per game. Minnesota has to be top 5 in the country or something like that. I feel like every single year, but so this guy's headed to Minnesota, 6 feet, 200 pounds. He hits 22 miles an hour. So that's when you're talking some really big top end speed, and even hitting, even being at least 200 pounds, hitting 22 is a really nice combination. I think he's got, that the size, the power, and then the program of Minnesota you love to see. There's a few screen passes, but honestly, that I don't know. He won't even catch balls at Minnesota, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm not sure there's a lot of receiving upside here. He's just a big power back, 3-star guy that I think can rise to the top of Minnesota. They bring in 2 or 3 running backs almost every single year. And the last few classes, I liked some guys, but they didn't really do a lot yet. And so now you've got this guy who I think, I like betting on 200 pounds and 22 miles per hour, to be honest with you. He shows a little wiggle, but I would say mostly just a straight line guy. And that's what Minnesota wants to do. I mean, they just want to ram it down your throat with their big offensive line. And as we saw in the bowl game, they have no problem giving a guy 30-plus carries a game. And so the guy who played really well in the bowl game was a freshman, so he will still be around. But if he does that again next year, he's probably transferring. I think this depth chart could open up shortly as well. Because I guess I'm just banking on a lot of guys transferring. That may not always happen, but these guys who are good, you probably only have one more year left unless it's a major school. So anyway, that's Fame Ijiboy for me. And then we'll go back around the horn to David with DJ Butler. I believe it's, DJ Butler, another G5 guy, right?
He's Houston. So what, they're in the Big 12 now?
High G5, high level G, right? Because they haven't fully gotten to the, I don't know. Go ahead and talk about it. It may be P4 now. I don't know.
Yeah, he's like a 6 foot, 185, 190 type guy, but kind of like Xavier Gantt, though, where it kind of looks pretty clear to me that he has a frame to add a good amount of weight. He's a dunker, so I like that at running back. You can see him jumping around out there. He has good burst. He has a stiff arm, put that guy in the dirt like that. He played quarterback for the most part, so he does have some receptions. Like you can see here, he's on special teams. Clearly, he can catch too. So I think he will be like a 3-down type guy eventually. But he's just like a super producer, and first team All-State in Alabama, like almost 2,000 yards, almost 10 yards per carry. Hits all those productions, 30 SOS, like decent competition. So he kind of hits all those marks. Just needs, like a lot of these guys, need some time to fill out the old frame there, but I think he'll be a 3-down guy hopefully.
Heck yeah. And then I stand corrected. Houston will be in the Big 12 next year, I believe. So P4 all the way. All right, Matt, take us through Nikai Davenport. He's next on your list as a 3-star that you really like.
Yeah, he is committed to USF, 6 foot, 190, playing out of Georgia, I believe. Very productive last year, 1,700 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 11.9 per carry, which is one of the higher ones I've actually seen for this class.
Mm-hmm.
Not really what we're looking for athletically. He doesn't really hit many marks. His athleticism score on database is pretty bad. I don't have the exact number. I think he's a solid runner, though. Pretty good vision, decent lateral movement. Probably, not the best tackle breaker or anything like that. But I think it's good enough to, at least compete G5. USF was 6th in the country last year in rushing attempts per game, which is doesn't get much better than that unless you're playing for a military school. So, yeah, I think if he gets the shot there, definitely could be a good CFF target.
Yeah, like that one a lot. You guys are pulling out some deep shots from mid court here tonight. I love it, guys. I haven't really even done my homework on some of these guys. So next one, this is kind of a deep shot for me, but he's high on our list just because he's tested a lot. Coming over from Europe, actually, we've got Duncan Brun, and he has been to a lot of camps. We do get some good testing numbers on these international prospects because they do go to a lot of camps and they do test them and work them out. But he's 6 feet, about 195, already listed on the Ohio depth chart or website. So Ohio G5 program that likes to run the ball quite a bit. But he's one of the more athletic guys that we've got in our database. He's pushing 200 pounds already. However, coming over from Germany, hard to know exactly what you're going to get. Hard to know exactly what that transition to even, high, compared to what he's been at, even G5 is going to be quite a big step up in competition and expectations. But very athletic guy on a depth chart that's going to be pretty thin. I mean, I mentioned earlier, Ricky Hunt had a great bowl game. And after that, Bangura went to Minnesota, who was kind of their lead running back. I think their second running back on the depth chart this season is out of eligibility with like 6 years played in the system. And so it's going to be Ricky Hunt, I think to start the season. He looks good. Brun could be the number 2, and then with injury or, maybe he's really good. Honestly, it's a total mystery box, I think, with a guy coming over from Germany. We don't really know. I don't think there's any great way to know how he's going to adjust. But just a guy I wanted to mention because of that athleticism and a pretty thin depth chart and G5 MAC competition. Seems like all the ingredients are there for a potential like out of nowhere guy to kind of rise up potentially next year. So definitely a name to keep your eyes on, I believe. All right, and David coming with the last guy, last but not least, we got Cameron Dicky here, who I believe is going to Texas Tech. Is that right?
Yeah.
So take it away, Cameron Dicky.
So they have him listed at 5'10", 205. Nice proportionate, strong body. He's like a 70th percentile athlete in our database, which is nice. He hits 21 miles per hour. He's got a 500 squat, 500 deadlift. So sturdy guy. I think he's got good feel. Probably a little, footwork's okay. But in general, he's got, a good feel for it. I think he can break tackles, stuff like that, low to the ground, nice pad level, really good statistically. He's around like 10. I think last year he was like 13 yards per carry. This year is around 10 yards per carry, but nearly 2,000 yards on the ground. But good burst too, I think. So a bursty guy with good size, and I don't know, the depth chart last I checked at Texas Tech, it's just that old guy, right? And then a little bit thin after that. They got that really thick dude. So I don't know, maybe he could be a producer in year 2 or 3 or something.
All right, Matt. Last one for you. Interesting guy coming out of the Southeast, coming out of the state of South Carolina, but going to Boston College. We've got Turbo Richard. Love that name. Tell us more about him.
Yeah, so he is 5'8", 5'9", around there. He's listed between 210 and 190. I think he looks pretty rocked up. He's a big-time weight room guy. Pretty impressive lifts that he has reported. So, if he isn't at, 210, yeah, I think he can definitely get there. 1,200 yards rusher, 20 touchdowns, 8.1 yards per carry. Checks all those boxes. I think he's pretty bursty. I think he's a really good runner. Pretty good receiver, too, actually. He had a few nice downfield catches. Kind of just a dog. You see him blocking there. Boston College, 11th in the country in rushing attempts per game. So that checks that box. Pretty weak depth chart. I couldn't even name, anybody. Do you guys know?
Kai Robichaud is a guy that they have, and I don't know how old he is. I know he played at Western Kentucky first and then Boston College this year, but not overly impressive and might be eligibility. I don't know how long he's been around.
Yeah. So either way, clear opening for him in the future, at least.
I would say one tiny caveat with those rushing attempts. A lot of them are Thomas Castellanos. Their quarterback runs a ton, but yeah, they want to run the ball and they're not going to be throwing a whole lot anyway. So I think it still checks out for sure. And if nothing else, Robichaud is kind of a grinder, big guy around the goal line type thing. So maybe Richard Phil's a totally new type of athletic running back that they could slide in there early in his career. So, all right. Well, I like that. We are right at 30 minutes. That's what we go for, even though it always ends up being longer. But those are your running backs, 3-star running backs. Keep your eye on. We got a nice mix of P4, G5, early producers, guys you might want to wait on. But all these names, write them down. And I think the best way to use this list, again, is know the name when you hear an injury or you hear he's going to be starting, because this happens, on Thursday, and you find out a guy's going to be starting on Saturday. Pick them up before they get on the field, because we like them. And once they get that shot, like an Ashton Jeanty, once they hit the field and show it, a lot of times it's on from that point. So keep these names in your back pocket. Gentlemen, thank you so much. 3-star running backs. We'll be back next week with 3-star receivers. And then we're going to go into some more, I think maybe some G5 lists, specifically digging real down deep into the G5 ranks once we hit into the February. So stick with us, keep liking, keep subscribing, and keep these views up. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been The Official.